Hey, family tech man, how's your spirit? Talk to me. Tell me something good. Uh, as always, we got a good one. I'm gonna give y'all some time to come in, and the topic is after healing, what no one talks about. This is gonna be deep. So go get your joint, whatever you do, go get it. I got mine. Now get yours. How y'all doing today? How's your spirit? How's your connection with the Most High? The God of your understanding. And as always, like I show you guys, the name of this program is called TACC, Through Adversity Come Change. See the TACC, TACC, Through Adversity Come Change. It's on Amazon, and the workbook is on Amazon now as well. It's 10.99. Uh, why this program is called TACC is I've been through a lot in my life, and it was only through the adversity that I was able to change my mindset, reinvent myself, you know, uh, get a master's degree in business, create 30 active divisive business concepts, and the beautiful thing about it is now that I live a righteous life, life feels so much better, you know, so much better, because, you know, it's simple. I no longer crave the things I used to crave. Now, don't get me wrong. God gave me 30 businesses, to put that I put together while I was in there. So I want to be financially stable in my life, but that's going to take time, and like I said, it's about doing little small milestones. Like I said last year, what happened happened, but now within a year's time, I've written a book, you know, TACC, Through Adversity Come Change. First, I did the Kindle, then I did the paperback, and then now I did. I started the podcast, what I'm doing now, and then I just did the workbook to start on your road of healing, and that's on Amazon as well. So it's about little milestones, a little bit of progression here and there, and to get till you get to where you need to be. Nothing happens overnight, and the blessing is being able to understand life better, being able to understand life for what it is, understanding people for who they are, and not judging, and just understanding that that's where they are in their life. That don't mean that's where you are. And you got to always strive to be better, to do better. And this is one of the things that I do. One of my prayers is, that I'm better tomorrow than I am today. And like I was saying the other day, that the brother Bam from Harlem said, 2 days you don't have no control over. And that's yesterday and tomorrow. So you have to live in the present. And an analogy that I use, right? While you looking back, you know, God may have something right here for you. And by the time you turn back around, it's gone. So pay attention. It's only through going through life's adversities that you learn about life. You can't learn it by not going through it. You can have all the book smart in the world, but if you don't have common sense, it'll be hard for you to survive. But here we go. After healing, what no one talks about. You open this powerful line. We spent 5 episodes talking about why people are afraid to heal. Tonight, we're talking about what happens after you actually do it. And I know a lot of people who may say, well, what are you talking about? I'm not healed. And all heal is being uh, conscious of the creator, being able to look in the mirror and be 100% honest with you and living your life in a positive light. This is why I said you have to heal. Healing is not unlearning what you learned, because everything you learned, there's truth and maybe falsehood. But get the truth out of it, and the falsehood, you let it go. And this is why I also say after healing is a very, very, very important that we learn the lies from the truth, because you can still be tricked. So let's go. Here are 5 deep segments you'll run with. Each one has 5 punchy questions to drive the conversation. The hidden cost of staying healed. What relationships did you lose that moment you stopped abandoning yourself? And these are questions you got to ask yourself. How much of your old identity was built on pain and dysfunction? Are you willing to be misunderstood by people you love? Have you had to give up to protect your peace? No, what have you had to give up to protect your peace? And is your healing worth loneliness that sometimes come with it? And see, these are questions you must ask yourself, right? For the simple fact that, you know, healing and living right and doing right is a lifelong process, just like it was a lifelong process doing stuff that wasn't right, and you get better at it, and it feels better. And you start to see that living right and doing right, it has so many more rewards than not trying to live right and heal and do the right thing. One second, let me get to this right here. Okay. Yeah. The hidden cost of staying healed. Most people never talk about this. Once you start healing, you can't unsee what you tolerated. Just think about that. You can no longer not see what you used to tolerate. And this is why I say in healing, right? We can't worry about the past. The past is just what it is. It's the past. We got to stay focused on the present. And like I said earlier, it's 2 days you don't have no power over. It's yesterday because it's already gone, and tomorrow because it hasn't come, and you might not make it to tomorrow. So you can't worry about that. You have to worry about the right now. And the right now is getting your head in the game and doing the right thing for yourself. So, oh shit. So let me continue. Oh fuck, where did I go? This joint is crazy. Okay, right here. Like I said, you can't unsee what you tolerated. Relationships may fall apart. You might lose money, and you'll have to grieve the version of yourself that survived by staying small. But the real question is, are you willing to keep paying that price? In order for you to heal, you have to be willing to sacrifice that. Like, no, I can't do that no more. And when you're able to do that, this is when you know that you're growing. And number two, who are you becoming when you're not, when there's no more pain to fix. Check this out. Who you are without your trauma story. And see, like, once you heal, you can't still go on those old stories of, woe is me and the trauma that you went through. Because once you heal, you get those things out of you. And this is what TACC does. It helps you work to relieve yourself of the traumas of your past, and get your mind focused on your future of living right and doing the right thing. Like I said, doing right feels so much better to me, you know. And like I said, I would have thought I would have never not did wrong, but it just doesn't feel right. So I don't do it. And this is a part of growth. You know, we're gonna go through things in life, man. And what we have to understand is that we're gonna all make mistakes. We're gonna all do things haphazardly. But it's being able to own up to your stuff, and then just keeping a positive attitude, and moving with intelligence, using your head for more than a hat rack. What do you talk about when you're no longer venting about your problems? And now that you heal, you don't have problems. What are you going to start talking about? And see, what helps me is talking about healing, talking about being at peace, talking about the things that get you there, and doing them. Most importantly, doing the things that please God and make your spirit feel good. Like one of the things I always say, like, I love to put a smile on people's heart. And it's just a kind word, you know. Excuse me. The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that just greeting someone is a blessing, barakah, you know. And a lot of people don't understand it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. And I love smiling. It makes my heart feel good. How do you introduce yourself when I've been through a lot is no longer your opener? Let me say that again. How do you introduce yourself when I've been through a lot is no longer your opener? So, like, it's saying that you no longer can use, I've been through so much, and this, you passed that. And see, this is what healing is about. This is about learning the lies from the truth, and just living right. You know, it's something that we all do when we go through what we go through, but you have to get past that. And this is why healing is so important. This is why learning how to get to your peace is so important. Embracing your journey is so important. Understanding wherever you're at in life, God put you there because He's driving the car and He makes no mistakes. And you must take the responsibility that maybe it's something that you've done that got you where you are, and facing that wall, and then going through the road of change. It takes a big person to do these things, you know. And see, once you have an understanding what God wants for you, you start to see life for what it really is. We're only going to be on this earth for so long. We're not going to live forever. So the whole thing is just trying to live right for the rest of your days. And that's my mission, to help people to heal so they can live right, and live peaceful. We need love in the world. We don't need hate. You see what hate gets us? Hate gets us a person that I don't even want to get into it. But yeah, it gets us nonsense. That's what hate gets. And then that same hate is turned on themselves. Now they're crying. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, and this is why love is so much more important than hate. This is why healing is so much more important than uh, being in turmoil. Being at peace is more important than going through life's madness. Being able to departmentalize the craziness and put it where it needs to be and stay focused and try every day to do something to help someone else. You don't know how much that improves you. Like I said, I do this not just for y'all, I do this for me because I need the help every day. I need the reassurance that there's a God and that He is in charge and that He has control over my life as long as I live life right. And if I don't, He lets you go. Like I was telling a young guy today, God loves you that much that He's willing to let you go. He does everything in His powers to help us to be on the right track. But if we want to go on the other side, He lets us. And that's how much more He loves us than we love ourselves. What does a day look like when you're not surviving? These are the things you have to ask yourself after healing, while healing, going through whatever. You know, what does a day look like when you're not surviving? And when you ain't got to survive, you're at peace, you know, and you just have to make your life the way you want it to be. Takes time, but you put the work in. I guarantee, like I said, going the extra mile is everything. And are you even excited about the version of you that's waiting on the other side? You got to ask yourself, are you excited about the other you that's going to be on the other side when you do heal and you have peace? I didn't understand until I got to the other side. And now being at peace, I'm happy as I can be because life is good, man. When you stop uh, living above your means, trying to please others to fit in and all that stuff. Like I told you, when I was young, I had low self-esteem. I wanted to be loved by people who didn't care about me, be around people who just used me, and you know. But now, as a man, I no longer have those insecurities and esteem issues. Because I've learned what life is. Like I said, I see life for what it is. I see people for who they are, and I don't judge. I understand. It's just what they had. DMX said something that was so profound. He said, uh, believe a person when they say who they are the first time. But how did it go? But trust and believe that they are who they say they are. Something like that, but it was profound. And it's the truth. People are going to be people. So you must always understand that, man, you're born in this world by yourself and you're going to die by yourself. No one is going to be good to you as you are to them. That's just not how life works. And it is what it is. And you have to be able to live with that. But who are you becoming when there's no more pain to fix? This is one that messes with people. Healing removes the drama, the chaos, the identity of being the strong one or the broken one. When that's gone, who are you? A lot of people panic and self sabotage because they don't know how to live without their pain story. And this is so true. And this is why it's only through our adversities that we make the changes we need to make in our life because the choices shape the adversities. Your adversities are your lessons to get you to your blessings. And this is how life goes. I didn't make these rules, but you have to live by them no matter what. The terrifying responsibility of being emotionally healthy. Like I always say, a lot of people don't want responsibility, but the terrifying responsibility of being emotional healthy, that's deeper. What happens when you can no longer blame your past for your present? Think about that. What happens? And these are things that we must ask ourselves. You know, what happens when you can no longer blame your past for your present? This just means you got to start doing the right thing. You know, a person can only keep bringing up your past if you keep being that same person. But when you change, it's no more excuses of what your past is because you gained a track record of doing right. And this is what it's all about, living right and doing right. How do you handle knowing every reaction is now a choice? Like I said, everything starts and ends right here. No longer point fingers. Everything starts in here and ends right here. So you can't say that something happened that was out of your control because when you're grown, every decision, every choice you make is your own. Now, if you do it out of whatever reason it is, peer pressure, fear, or whatever, that's on you. But you have to make the choice to do whatever you do in life because you're grown now. Can you hold yourself accountable without beating yourself up? And like I tell y'all, I was always my worst critic. No one could, make me feel as bad as I make myself feel bad when I'm alone by myself. And I've learned to stop beat myself up because when you learn about life, you understand that we're going to make mistakes. We come in this world knowing nothing and we learn until we die. Period. And just how life is. And you have to be able to hold yourself accountable without beating yourself up. Of course, a lot of us do. And you have to learn to stop, which I had to learn. It's a process. But trust me, when you get it, you got it. What does it mean to become the safest person in your own life? Let me say that again. What does it mean to become the safest person in your own life? You know, healing is deep, man. And there's so many different things you got to ask yourself and you got to go through because if you don't, you're not going to get it. You got to really want to heal. You got to really want to change. You got to really want peace. And that comes with forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to it all. Being able to forgive others, but most importantly, being able to forgive yourself. And that's when the peace comes in. That's when the healing really starts. And then you have to work on it daily. It's nothing that's just, like my life is not perfect, but it's fantastic, because I make it that way. It's about your choices. If you choose to be a monkey brain, you're going to be a monkey brain. If you choose to be a patient of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and character and dignity, that's what you will be, no matter what no one else says. You have to live right for yourself. And are you ready to stop making excuses for yourself? That's a key thing that a lot of people uh, Do I used to be the greatest excuse maker. Even when I was right, I made excuses. You know what I say now? It is what it is. And that's all that it is. The terrifying responsibility of being emotionally healthy. When you're healed, you can't blame your trauma anymore. Every choice, every reaction, every boundary is on you. Like I always say, your past is only a measuring stick for your future. You know, you take from it what you like and you let go of the things you didn't, and you draw your boundaries. And the people who love you respect your boundaries. The people who don't love you, just let them go. You don't have to be combative. It is what it is. You know, you don't respect me or respect my boundaries, so it's nothing for us to deal with each other with for. So, you know, and it's no love loss. It is what it is. It's just how life is. Things happen, you know, and you just have to understand that things happen. That level of accountability is freeing for some of the completely overwhelming. And let me start this over. When you heal, you can't blame your trauma anymore. Every choice, every reaction, every boundary is on you. That level of accountability is freeing for some and completely overwhelming for others. And that's real. You know, what is cool for some is difficult for others. And we got to understand that. But you have to find your space, your place in life and lock on to it. You know, you can never worry about what no one else says, feel, and think. Like I said, what a person says, feel, and think. If I'm trying to get on the bus or the train and I don't have no money, it can't get me on the train or the bus. But if I got $3.50, I can go about my business. You know, so what a person says, feel, and think doesn't matter when you become grown. It's about what you say, feel, and think and how you live. And that's just it. What is um what if peace feels boring compared to chaos? A lot of people love chaos. And and the thing is, right, when a person no longer has the chaos, life feels like a person from the city moving down south is boring. You know, they need that, that adrenaline rush. But do you secretly miss the drama of your old life? You got to ask yourself if that's what's happening. Why does calm sometimes feel like something's missing? The action. How do you sit in peace without creating problems to solve? And see, when you're in peace, you're going to always think of problems to solve. And that's the blessing of that. Are you addicted to emotional intensity? And a lot of people are. And can you trust that calm is safe? You know, a lot of people refuse to change and doing these things, right, keep you stuck. It's about trying to elevate yourself at all times in life. The only way you can make it in life to be better and to elevate is keep striving to do and be better. That's it. One step in front of the other. You get knocked down 10, get up 11. That's it. It's not rocket science. But we make it so difficult because we've been lied to so much. And this is why once we heal, we have to learn the lies from the truth. We've all been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. But it's time for us to wake up. You know, and it's check that out. Just that right there. They make in being awoke. Being awoke means you can see. They making that like the opposite. And that's crazy. But that's how they play the mind games. And this is what makes, oh, I'm not woke. Yeah, I'm woke. I am woke, wide awoke. I see life for what it is, people for who they are, and I don't judge. But I understand where a person is at, that's not where I'm at. And you just got to keep striving, man. You know, like I said, man, being healed and that peace, man, is one of the greatest things God can give you. You know, if I was to die today or tomorrow, man, I had a great life. And to be able to die at peace, man, greatest feeling in the world. Because I know I'll be with the Most High because I lived right. This. What if peace feels boring compared to chaos? This one cuts deep. Many people get addicted to the intensity of their old life. Real peace can feel empty or comfortable at first. The episodes become about learning to trust stillness instead of chasing the next crisis. And healing, these are the things that we have to do. You know, we can't uh let our past dictate our future. We got to move on. Healing isn't about feeling better, it's about becoming real. It's about becoming better. It's about becoming the person that God made you to be. And you just took side roads to go, but now once you're on that road of healing, you the person that God wants you to be, because you're 100% real, not only with others but with yourself, which is most important, because you can't lie to God. What mask are you still wearing even after healing? If you are, these are questions to keep yourself in check. Are you willing to be disliked for being yourself, for being the real you? Because you're going to get that, and it's going to come from the people you love the most. How honest can you actually be with the people closest to you? You know, your circle is who you are, is a reflection of you. And if you can't be real with them, that's not your circle. So you have to be able to be honest with them like they have to be able to be honest with you. And how honest can you be with them? These are things you have to ask yourself. And when you grow in knowledge, certain things that you would just say or blurt out, you think about it first, you know, and you weigh your odds, you know, because some people you can tell things to and some people you can't. You have to be able to know which ones you could and which ones you can't. And that's just life. What part of you have you been hiding that's now needs to come out? And when was the last time you showed up completely unedited, meaning being your real self? You know, and the moment you realize healing isn't about feeling better, it's about becoming real. Healing isn't a destination where everything feels good. It's about dropping the mask, stopping the performance, and being fully yourself, even when it's ugly or unpopular. That's the deepest layer most people never reach. And see, this is why I always tell you guys, like, you know, we have to be 100% real, you know, in life, period, with ourselves, uh, because the beautiful thing about life, right? When you become real with life and you become real with you, You no longer have to hide behind pride, ego, low self-esteem, guilt, shame, jealousy, envy. You let all of the isms go. You have to let all of them go. And until you let all of them go, you're not going to be able to uh, be your best. You're not going to be able to be your best. And like I tell you, it's a process. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But the beautiful thing about healing is once you're on that road, you're on that journey, you're going to start seeing life for what it is, people for who they are, and you're going to learn not to judge because you have more growing to do, and you can't worry about what someone else is doing when you're trying to heal because you're taking away from yourself. You got to always keep the focus on you. You can't put the focus nowhere else but on you. And by doing that, this is how you heal. This is how you get better. This is how you become better. This is how you be better. This is how you help others to be better. You have to let go everything of this worldly life. When they say you can't take it with you, it's not just money. It's none of the habits of this world. The ego, easing God out, the pride, jealousy, envy, hate, uh, all the schisms and isms, man. You have to let all that go. None of that can enter the paradise. You know, like I tell you, this is not a religious program. This is a spiritual program for difficult people. And we got to understand that, we're all one family, no matter what we may say, feel, and think. And we all got to answer to God, period. That's it. No, nothing more, nothing less. And when we get it, we'll have it. Like I said, I just want us to win. I just want us all to win. I want us to heal so that we can find our place in this life and stop being treated other than when we know we are the creators of all. We're the original, but somewhere we fell short and God is spanking us. He's just giving us lessons. He's not hurting us. He's making you think, you know. And if you catch on, you're gonna be all right. Everything happens for a reason. God don't make no mistake. Like the second principle, wherever you at in life, He put you there because He driving the car. And whatever He putting you through, He gonna get you through because He take care of everything He make. And you gotta understand that the adversities He put you through are making you stronger to be able to deal with what He has for you in the future. And I know it may not make sense now because it didn't make sense to me. And some of the stuff still don't make sense because it hasn't manifested. But little by little, they're manifesting, and it builds my faith more and more and more. It's gonna be all right. We just got to keep striving and doing the right thing. You know, Life is painful, but you have to you have to be tougher than life, and you were built tougher than life because God put life in you. So it's a reason you're here. Like I said, if you ain't get shit out, spit out, or swallowed, you have a purpose. Find your purpose. You're gonna go through hardship. You're gonna go through way more no's than you're gonna go through yeses. But embrace your no's. Of course, your no's are your lessons to get you to your blessings. Just understand that. Everything in life that God puts you through, He gonna get you through. Because he created you, not for nothing. He created you for a reason. You just got to figure your purpose out. And that's embrace your journey. And what I mean by embrace your journey, embrace everything that he puts you through. Everything God puts you through, embrace it. Ask him what it is you're trying to show me. Don't be like, and I had to learn this when I was in the belly of the beast, 'cause a lot of stuff was like, and then after a while, he showed me, embrace it, embrace the pain. And the pain goes away when you embrace it. It's crazy, but you have to go through it. It's just like a person going through withdrawals and drugs. He's over the hump, but he gets those little urges. And if he used just one time, it takes him all the way back to the beginning. You know, People who understand know what I'm saying. So you just have to be strong enough to get past that little part, and I guarantee you're gonna be a winner. And this is what it's all about. It's being able to be strong enough to get past that little part that's a little tough. And I guarantee you, man, life will be better. Y'all have a blessed night. I think we had a good show tonight, and I pray that everything I said helps someone. And just know that, man, if nobody told you today that they love you, I'm telling you, I love each and every one of y'all. And I pray for each and every one of y'all every day, because I know united we stand, divided we fall. And this is why they're winning, because we're divided. It's time for us to come together and make a place in this world so we can never become called second class nothing, where they respect us as the creators, the original people that we are. Because if you ever notice, we dominate everything we get in. And most everything was created by us, or was just stolen. So just know that we're great. And if we come together, we'll be greater. But we must heal first, learn the lies from the truth. Then we can come together and do big things. Y'all have a blessed night, right? Tag man out. Get your spirit right, your connection with God. Peace.